chips are some of the smallest things that can happen to your teeth, but also one of the hardest things that a dentist can fix. And unfortunately, why sometimes stuff like this can happen. So let's get into it. You see, the way that dental bonding or composite bonding to teeth works is you have all these little tubules in your teeth, and we use these etchants and we use different glues and primers to be able to stick to the surface area of your tooth to make that bond between glue and tooth work. Now, just in basic science, the more surface area you have to bond to everything, the more of those tubules you can attach to, the stronger that bond is going to be. And so if you have something big, like a big chip, it goes across a lot of tooth enamel, and so we can make it and build it up and have it stick pretty good. Now for chips, on the other hand, if you have just these little tiny chips, there's such small surface area that it can't attach to many of those dental or enamel tubules, and so the bond is just pretty not good. And then on top of that, most of the time chips are in the front teeth, and that's exactly what you're using to bite, chip, grind, tear, everything else in between, and so they're hitting a lot more damage than other places. So those two things together causes chipped little fillings like this to fall out literally all the time. In fact, I've got a couple chips and I've had them filled multiple times and they just always fall out. So what are your options at that point? Well, one, they can do what they did with this girl here, where they can actually shave a little more and they can build it up bigger than a tiny little chip. That increases the surface area, makes it a little bit taller, unfortunately, but it does give you a little more bulk of material so that it can stay a little bit easier. Now, I actually took a picture of her before so you can actually see what her teeth look like before. And I think actually the optimal thing to do here would have been some enameloplasty, because if you look at her picture, she just had a couple little tiny chips here in the corners. And so instead of building things up and making her teeth longer, which could potentially give her that bunny teeth look that we've talked about before, but also enameloplasty would allow us to get a good look without having any composite restorations at all. No veneers, no crowns, no little composite bondings, nothing that can fall out. And so all we would do is we go in with a burr. We do this all the time at the end of braces. It's called Hollywood. Is we just go in and we will smooth out those edges, and we'll kind of smooth them out, and sometimes even remove just a tiny little bit of enamel. So instead of building 3 millimeters, we may take off 0.5 millimeter and make it look perfect again. Now that being said, it doesn't matter how perfect I make it or whatever. If you're still doing a bad habit, or you're chilling, or you're biting on nails, or you have a traumatic occlusion and you're hitting really hard somewhere, you're just going to chip it again. So sometimes that's the really big issue that you need to solve. But until then, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It looks like he did add a little bit more, but it still looks really good, and I think you're just going to get used to it just fine.